Welcome to week 2 of biblical interpretation and teaching. Hopefully you got through week 1 without any issues or any real problems. It was a pretty easy first week, a little bit of reading. This week, in week 2, you also have some reading to do, and you have a sermon to watch. Now, from this week till the end, each week we'll have a sermon to watch, and then as you watch that sermon, you're going to be analyzing it. Not quite so much as to whether this is a good speaker or not, or a good preacher or not, but how they are handling the scripture. Are they handling the scriptures they use in a responsible way, in a way that reflects good exegesis? And so you're going to listen to a sermon this week that came from Denver, Colorado. And it is an interesting one, and I'll be very honest with you, it is not the kind of sermon that I grew up listening to, but it is a very good sermon, and one that has a lot of really good points. And so you have some questions to answer about that sermon and a discussion to have about that sermon after the fact, after you've had a chance to listen to it. The other main emphasis this week is something called a pericope, and it refers to a cutting out or a unit of scripture that makes sense by itself, kind of a complete story that has a beginning, middle, and an end. Now, as probably all of you know, the Bibles that we read today are divided in chapter and verse. But the original manuscripts were not like that at all. And so a lot of times the chapter divisions or the verses that we have aren't particularly a great reflection of a complete thought or a complete story. As a matter of fact, many times as we're reading across chapter divisions, say from chapter 5 to chapter 6, the story continues, the line of thinking continues. And so when we look for a pericope, what we're looking for is that complete thought. It doesn't have to be long, but it has to be complete in its nature. The subject is covered. The story is told. And that is a pericope. And so this week you're going to practice with that in Luke chapter 10, I believe. And you're going to look at that chapter, and then you're going to pick out a section that you believe is a complete section, a pericope. And you're going to talk about that, write about that. And this is something that will need to become almost second nature to you, not only for this course, but in the future as you look at Scripture. It will be important for you to be able to look at Scripture and find the section, the cutting out part, the pericope, that gives you a complete thought. Especially if you are going to teach or preach, this is essential to understanding Scripture and helping others to understand it and communicating effectively to them. As always, if you have problems or questions, you can email me, text me, or call me. If you need some special attention or some special time, I'd be glad to Zoom with you, and we can go over whatever you need to talk about. This is an important week. You have some additional reading to do in your textbooks. I encourage you to do that. Then do your assignments, your written assignments. Pay close attention to the minimum word requirements for these writings that you need to do. Many times students will take something that is supposed to be 250 words, which is about a typewritten page, and they'll write 100 words or 150 words. And if you do that, it's not really discussing or really dealing and processing the information as we want you to do. So make sure that you pay close attention to those word requirements, and that will help you to do, I think, a better job of dealing with the material this week. All right? This is week 2, and complete this. You'll be a third done with the course. That's pretty fast, right? And I will see you again in a video at the beginning of week